Introducing yourself, telling us about where you are in the journey. Like you said, going through a journey with autism, you can't do it alone. You need a community or a support group just to make sure that you're staying sane as much as you can. So thank you for sharing. It's 2:11, so we'll just go right into it so that we can maximize our time as best as we can. For those joining for the very first time, hello, my name is Abiola Adedeji, and I'm the founder of Chronicles of Autism Mom. I'm not necessarily the only person that is working on this journey. We have several moms here, and that's why the name really applies to everyone. It's our chronicles, and we decide to choose what we want to say about our narrative. And so it's indeed my pleasure to welcome you here today. I'm trusting God that your time here will be very valuable. You would find resources, you'll find information that would help you to better support your child. So just to go into our agenda today, a quick brief of what we'll be looking at. So yes, we'll do our introduction. I'll tell you a little more about the foundation in a minute and a half or 2 minutes maximum. I'll tell you some available resources that you can go and get. And then we will also do a quick icebreaker whereby we'll go into different breakout rooms and introduce ourselves better. Apart from just hearing from experts, sharing, educating ourselves here, we also try to build one-on-one relationships with as many people as you can. We call them sisters or families that can hold your hands and cheer you on days where you are overwhelmed, on days where you just need a question, just that body that you can call and say, hey girl, have you gone through this? Have you gone through this? How did you navigate? So we do a lot of connecting here. And so we're going to our breakout room to introduce ourselves. Hopefully that you can find a common ground with somebody in the breakout room and you can connect offline in the WhatsApp group also. Then after we return from that breakout room, we will have our guest speaker today, Emma Lomax. She's a certified and a speech-language pathologist. She's going to share with us strategies for effective communication at home. Then once she educates us, we're going to take a quick question and answer session for 15 minutes. And then we'll return to the breakout room whereby we discuss the follow-up actions that we intend to take based on the strategies and the tips we've learned from Emma today. Then we'll wrap up with our October challenge, the feedback. We'll announce the winner, and then we'll take random questions and answers or any pain points that you have and you need help navigating that. So that's a run through of our agenda today, and our time today promised to be very impactful, engaging, informative, and I trust that you'll have fun today. So before I go ahead and introduce Chronicles of an Autism Mom Foundation, I want to ask you guys, can you drop in the chat what exactly is your biggest communication struggle right now, so that Emma can know and she can provide some tips regarding that. So if you have any communication challenge with your child, this is the best time now. Just quickly type in the chat and drop in your questions. I know you're here today because you have some troubling, you need ideas, you need people to navigate with you, to just even enlighten you on what is going on. Like Chinanu that says, our son can talk, or they know they have these words, but they just choose not to talk or choose not to engage in a communication or dialogue with people around them. So if you have any particular question or pain points around communication, please quickly drop your question in the chat and she will be going through them and be reading your questions. So please quickly do that so you don't forget. So now let me just tell you about Chronicles of an Autism Mom. Chronicles of an Autism Mom is a non-profit organization. It was born out of love in a world whereby I noticed that I was feeling neglected. I had a child who was diagnosed with autism. We just recently located to Canada, but I couldn't find any community. I was still trying to navigate my way. And yes, we started sharing our journeys on Instagram just to cheer ourselves up. And out of that cheerfulness, several people reached out and said that they could connect with what we are doing. They have a child also with a diagnosis who has some developmental delay. and they would like to learn about strategies that I'm doing to support my son, Damie. And that's how we started sharing our journey, and that is how the foundation was birthed. The old mission and vision of the foundation is to make sure that everyone in our community, every single family, thrives on their journey. Now, it's so particular to me. I'm so passionate about it because I don't want just children to thrive, but I want the parents to thrive as well. I've gotten to know that while you were actively working to improve and better the potentials of our children, we as parents, we tend to neglect ourselves. And also with that also coming prioritizing what we give attention to or where we put our finances to. I know it's important that we do early intervention for our children, but as much as we're doing that, I also want us to also put in place whereby we prioritize ourselves, because we can only give out of the abundance of what we have. And so that is our vision, to make sure that individuals with any diagnosis and their families also thrive. And so that is Chronicles of an Autism Mom. What we do here, we educate ourselves, we support one another, we empower parents, and we also cheer ourselves on our little miracles. Yeah, so this is what we do. Benefits of joining our community: we support you, we educate, we laugh together, and we celebrate our wins. Some of the wins that I have celebrated this week could be, I'm sure, well, this is a close-knit community, so I'm sure someone or two people might relate to it. In my accountability partner group, we're celebrating because the children were able to poop. They have this severe case of constipation, and when they go often to the washroom, it's something we rejoice about. So something as small as that people outside will trivialize, they're a big deal to us, and we celebrate these wins. Not only that, we celebrate families. From time to time, we know people who have a child on the spectrum oftentimes are afraid to expand their family. So when somebody in the community is able to go out and have a new baby, we also celebrate that. Not only that, we also laugh a lot. So we laugh when, like on your screen, you can see somebody saying that some things referred to her a while ago, like treatment plans or some supplements that we've all tested to. They are expensive, and we say that this problem is not just for the faint-hearted, it's for the Bill Gates kind of people. But we laugh about that because, yes, in our journey, we can also find email as well. Also, we also celebrate, like the last says, I'm thankful for my son, Ebuka, thankful that he is so much more aware of his environment and is communicating a lot better and takes instructions really well now. Thankful that he can now participate in pretend play with his friends in school and other school activities. So we celebrate several things. We educate ourselves. Somebody just joined and says, he or she doesn't know how to navigate their child. And some people provide some tips on how she can, engage with that child. Somebody also said doesn't know what questions to ask in IEP. And so you will see people educate and share information regarding IEP as well. So here, that's what we do. We support ourselves, we educate, we laugh, and we also will celebrate our wins. If you just join, and I'm just going to mute you. Yes. So right now, that's about Chronicles of an Autism Mom. That is what we do. If you are new and you haven't joined our community, I will ask somebody to help copy the link from the WhatsApp group and just drop it in the chat. Please do yourself a favor and join the community. You will have friends, you will have families, and you can walk this journey together and just thrive together. That is our ultimate goal, that every single family that joins our community thrive. So yeah, that's Chronicles of an Autism Mom Foundation. Right now, we'll go into the breakout room, whereby I want you to introduce yourself to people in your breakout room. I know before now, we usually try to take it here, but it's going to take us time. But in the benefit of our time, if we have time, we can do this game. But right now, I'm just going to break out into 4 groups because we have 15 participants now. I'll quickly break us out to 4 groups, whereby I want us to share, just introduce yourself, tell your roommates or your buddies your name, where you're joining from, how long you've been on this journey, and what you do. Let's get to know ourselves. I'm hoping that we can find common ground, and then we can come back. Then we'll have our guest speaker educate us about communication strategies that we can engage, or tips that we can use to help communicate better with our children. So I'm just going to break house out. Please there are random rooms. Just join any room, introduce yourself, what you do, how you're doing for the next 10 minutes. Then we'll come back, not up 10 minutes, 7 minutes, because we're going to have our guest speaker right at 2:30. So for just 7 minutes, then we'll come back. So please go ahead. The rooms are open now. Feel free to join the room and just introduce yourself to the people you have in your room. We have about 3 people in some room, 4 people in some room. So just let's go in and just introduce yourself. Okay, so I didn't know you guys were back. Thanks for joining back. So if you had a turn, if you were able to introduce yourself, can I see your hands up? I want to know those who didn't get a turn so that I can have you introduce yourself afterwards to the entire group. Okay, thank you, Lola. My name's Wasi, Emma. You got to introduce yourself. If you got to introduce yourself in your breakout room, let me see your thumbs up so I know. Okay, I think all the rooms are just closed now. So yeah, I was asking if you were able to introduce yourself in your breakout room. Can I see your thumbs up? If you were not, just do thumbs down so I know and I can have you introduce yourself later on. So I'm assuming everybody was able to introduce themselves. Would that be it? Were we all able to introduce ourselves? Fantastic then. I think most people, I didn't see any thumbs down. So I'm just going to share my screen. If you do not get to introduce yourself, please let me know and I would, I'll give you a turn afterwards to introduce yourself. It's 2:33, 2:32, and we're a minute behind. But right now, I just want to welcome Emma. Emma is our guest speaker today, and I'm just going to play her bio so you can all listen and know that she's an expert. She knows her onions. Not only that, she's someone that I've seen make an impact in Dami's life in a very short period of time, and I felt it wouldn't be good for me to be selfish. Let me share her with everybody, and that is why Emma is here. And Emma, once this audio finish playing, you can please come on with your video if you choose to, and you have 30 minutes to speak, and we'll take question and answer for 15 minutes afterwards. And please, you don't need to stay afterwards. You can go back to your busy schedule. I'm really grateful that you were able to, give us your time today and share with us. So I'll just say after that.
Emma is a speech-language pathologist who graduated from Queen Margaret University with a Master of Science in Speech-Language Pathology. Emma is registered with the College of Audiologists and Speech-Language Pathologists of Ontario, CASLPO, as well as with Speech, Language and Audiology Canada. She has experience working with both children and adults in a variety of settings such as schools, clients' homes, and hospitals. Through these experiences, Emma developed a passion for working with children with a variety of speech and communication needs, such as developing social communication skills, language development, motor speech and no-tech and low-tech alternative and augmentative communication strategies and devices. She's an advocate for early intervention and involving families and caregivers in therapy sessions in order to help each client reach their full potential. Emma has completed the Introduction to Prompt Techniques as well as Digging Deeper, a practical, in-depth look at motor speech assessment and therapy from the Speech and Stuttering Institute. These allow her assess motor movement and use precise tactile cues to facilitate the motor movements of speech for better sound approximation. Emma has also participated in Making the Shift, the virtual experience, which provides strategies to help children develop sensory regulation skills, self-advocacy skills, and support their emotional well-being through communication. Community members, let us give a very warm welcome to Emma Lomax.
Hi, Emma.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Right, so today I will be discussing strategies for effective communication at home. We already went over all about me, so I will jump right into it. I also apologize in advance if you see me sipping some water. My voice decided it wasn't fully going to cooperate today, so bear with me. So I thought that it would be helpful before we dive into types of communication and strategies to discuss the different ways that language is acquired. So this will help us know how best to support children and their communication. The way we most often think of is analytic. So with analytic language development, children start by babbling. Next, they start using single words and then longer phrases until finally they are at conversation level. While they're expanding their language, they're also learning and developing grammar. The other type of way that children acquire language is called Gestalt language processing, and it does not follow the same linear acquisition. So a GLP processor starts with an echolalic phrase, word, or sentence that's really rich in intonation and it holds meaning to them. This phrase can be from anywhere, but it's common to hear phrases from a TV show, a book, or a song. When a Gestalt language processor is using these echolalic phrases, they're unable to recognize the meaning of each individual word within that phrase. So, for example, a child might say happy birthday when they're happy because they've made a connection that when they heard the phrase happy birthday, they felt extremely happy, and now they use that phrase to convey that emotion. Gestalt language processors, often with the help of a speech-language pathologist, will next start to mix and match parts of their Gestalt phrases. Next, in stage 3, they'll start to process those words as individual units and begin to create their own unique two-word phrases. In stage 4, they will start to come up with novel utterances and their grammar is going to start to develop. Finally, in stage 5 or 6, the individual will move to conversation and use complex grammar. And as I said, how you support your child with communication can be shaped by the type of language processor that they are. Another important aspect, and this came up in our breakout rooms, before we dive into different types of communication abilities, are the different types of communication an individual might use. The one we are all most familiar with is verbal language or speech, which is how most of us communicate on a daily basis. Now, this can consist of gestures, body language, eye contact, facial expressions, and the use of objects while we're speaking. We also have AAC, which is known as alternative and augmentative communication, and it's a larger category that includes both aided and unaided, as well as no, low, or high-tech options. With unaided AAC, it can include gestures, sign language, Makaton, or even just vocalizations. Low-tech aided AAC can include pictures, so some of you might be familiar with the PECS system. It can include objects, drawings, or written words, all used to communicate. Finally, we have high-tech aided AAC options, which includes apps, iPads, and speech-generating devices such as GoTalk. No matter what type of communication your child is using, it's important to honor all forms of communication and all communication attempts. So here are some pictures of common AAC options, including Proloquo, a communication board, and a speech-generating device, in this case, GoTalk. It's important to discuss with your therapist if AAC is a good option for your child, and if so, which AAC options might be considered. It's really important to note there are no prerequisites needed to introduce AAC. So this makes it a great option for all ages and all communication abilities. As I'm sure most of you know, there are different communication milestones for each age group. An important disclaimer, these milestones are based on analytic language processors and are typically based on neurotypical individuals. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have norms for, for neurodiverse individuals. So hopefully we get some norms for that community soon. I still think it's important to be familiar with these milestones as they're used to track development for both neurodiverse and neurotypical individuals, and they might be referenced during meetings with doctors, schools, or other professionals. Something else that's important to know when looking at milestones is there's the milestone and then there's the average. The milestone is what approximately 90% of children at that age are able to do, whereas the average is what approximately 50% of children at that age are able to do. Generally speaking, doctors tend to go by the 90%, the milestone, and speech-language pathologists tend to work with more averages, but that varies clinician to clinician. So by age 3, the milestone is 250 words, but the average number of words between ages 3 and 4 is over 1,000. At this age, children typically start to combine 3 words together and are able to start answering and asking WH questions and express how they are feeling. So our WH questions include who, what, where, when, and why. Children are also able to start following 2-step directions at this age, understand prepositions, and size concepts like big and small. Between the ages of 4 and 5, children are able to start engaging in conversations and use longer sentences of 8 or more words. They'll also start to be able to describe items and recall information, as well as start to tell stories. Between the ages of 4 and 5, your child should also be able to follow multi-step directions with a modifier. So for example, they should be able to follow go get the blue ball and red car and put them under the table. At this age, children should also be able to recall and sequence events that happen during the day and understand concepts such as first, then, next, last. The first and then are also really important because whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, using language like first then can really aid in transitions through either verbal language or a visual aid like a first then board. Once children are between the ages of 6 and 8, most of their grammar should be mastered and they'll be able to use increasingly complex sentences and conversation. Some other developments that are worth noting are the ability to understand non-literal language and ask and answer inferential questions. In regards to understanding, at this age, children should be able to follow 4-step oral directions and be able to demonstrate an understanding of grade level reading material by answering some reading comprehension questions. They'll also start to build an understanding of words that have multiple meanings. Between the ages of 8 and 10, children will use clear and specific vocabulary during conversation. So for example, instead of saying, put that over there, They might instead say, put the blue ball on the chair. They'll also use a variety of words at this age instead of the same select few over and over. And there's a continued increase in the production of figurative language, as well as using some synonyms. And then the last age group we're going to talk about today is ages 10 and up. So after age 10, children will be able to use abstract vocabulary in conversation and will be able to organize information to clarify. So for example, if they're talking about their day, they'll be able to sequence those events in a logical order so their communication partner understands them. They'll also be able to use language effectively for a variety of purposes and in various situations. At this age, children will also be able to summarize main points of information to others. From an understanding standpoint, children will be able to understand riddles or jokes based on word ambiguity and be able to listen and draw conclusions in a variety of subject areas. They'll also start to develop the ability to form opinions based on evidence, and they should be able to demonstrate an understanding of grade level material. So I'll now go into some specific strategies that can help support your child's language development for various stages of communication. If your child is pre-verbal, we need to slightly alter the way we're communicating with them to better support their language development. Throughout the day, try to comment on whatever your child is doing. I like to explain this as you should pretend to be a narrator on a children's TV show. Try to use short, simple phrases such as shoes on, let's go, a blue block. When you're commenting, it's also important that you use more comments than questions, as questions can put more expectation on your child versus providing a functional language model for them. If they are pre-verbal and we ask them an open-ended question, like what do you want, odds are they won't be able to answer. This can increase frustration and sometimes lead to tantrums. A really good rule of thumb is to try to comment 3 to 5 times for every question you might ask. If the question you're asking contains a choice, for example, do you want orange or apple juice, use a visual whenever possible. This could be a picture of the object or the object itself, but by using a visual, you're providing a nonverbal way for your child to communicate their choice. By giving choices, you're also increasing the number of models for a single word. So if we go back to our orange and apple juice example, you can hold up both containers so your child could point to them or do the same with 2 pictures. And then once they make their selection, you can model some short, simple phrases like apple juice, you want apple juice. Then you can comment on pouring the apple juice into the cup or that your child likes drinking apple juice. The more repetition of a word you say and can incorporate that throughout the day, the better. Another very important strategy is to not say. Now, this I always tell parents is a very challenging strategy because we don't often realize when we're doing it. By saying, say cat, this increases the expectation for communication, and your child may not even be able to say the word that you're asking them to. Furthermore, this is just teaching your child how to repeat, not how to spontaneously communicate on their own, which is what we're working towards. Instead, try using the commenting and choices strategies to help provide a more functional language model. If your child is starting to explore or starting to use a form of AAC, make sure that's available at all times for them to access, and make sure you're modeling it using the same strategies we discussed for verbal language. This will help your child develop language and communication via their AAC device. As this device is viewed as an extension of their voice, it should never be out of reach. Just like we wouldn't put tape on our mouth to stop someone from talking, we wouldn't take away an AAC device. So that should be an extension of your child at all times. AAC should also be incorporated into a variety of scenarios and settings, such as school, home, going to the park, or going to the store. If your child has started to develop language, either verbal language or through AAC, you can use these strategies to help support that language development. The first thing you should try to do is give the child processing time. This means after you've said something to them, pause before you expect a response. Now, I always tell parents, try and count to about 5 in your head. It will seem like much longer than 5 seconds, but I promise you that's a good amount of time for your child to process what you've said and then formulate that response. If a child's also learning how to navigate an AAC device, it also gives them time with their motor planning to find the button or symbol they want to use to respond. When your child does respond, try repeating back what they say and expanding on it. For example, if you ask your child, "What is the dog doing?" and your child says, "Walk," you can respond with, "Yes, the dog is walking." This not only validates their response, but it also provides a model for a longer phrase with correct grammar. If your child makes a communication attempt, but you're not quite sure what they mean, so it could be an unintelligible vocalization, they may have hit a button that they've never hit before on their AAC device, you want to try and interpret that. So, for example, if your child's a Gestalt language processor and they're playing with Mr. Potato Head, let's say they start to sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So that's one of their echolalic phrases that they're using. You could then point to each body part on Mr. Potato and validate their language by confirming, "Yes, I see his head and his toes. You're right, those are his body parts." The next 2 strategies might seem obvious to some of you, but they're really important, so I want to just reiterate them. You need to make sure you're talking to your child throughout the day and creating communication opportunities. When we're talking to our child, we don't always expect a response as they're still acquiring language, but talking to them about what you're doing and what you see helps model language in various scenarios and settings. You can also create opportunities for communication throughout the day in a few different ways. So one way might be keeping snacks and drinks where your child can see them, but they can't access them without asking for help. Or let's say you're sitting down to eat, you could give them food but no utensils and wait for them to bring this to your attention. So again, that creates another opportunity for them to first alert you, then request or comment, and then you can, again, expand on whatever language they use to comment and recast using a longer sentence. These little changes will help increase the opportunities as well as the reasons for your child to use language. For children who have a robust communication system in place, either with their AAC device or through verbal language, there are still strategies you can use to help continue to support them. When you're speaking with your child, still try to use those visuals to help support their understanding. So for example, let's say you're talking about a book that you read. Have that book there in front of you for your child to reference. Let's say they're having trouble finding a specific word for a character, then they can flip through the book and point to it to show you, and you can kind of help troubleshoot that scenario. If your child has difficulties remembering routines or multi-step directions, try using visual schedules or first then board. So again, this gives your child something to refer back to in case they didn't remember all of the verbal steps that you told them. When you're speaking with your child, try to reduce any distractions such as background noise and make sure you have their full attention before trying to communicate with them. So if the TV is on in the background and it's a show that they really like, odds are they're not giving 100% of their attention to you when you're trying to talk to them. which is just, again, going to lead to frustration on your end, and frustration because your child's going to be wondering why you're interrupting their favorite TV show. So just try and reduce any of that background noise. When communicating, it's also important to try to use your child's interests to promote more opportunities for communication. So I'd really recommend brainstorming a list of toys, TV shows, and activities that your child enjoys, and focus the conversation on those. Everyone is more likely to engage in conversation when it's about something that interests them. You'll also be tapping into an area of strength for your child, as they likely know quite a bit about their preferred activities. And I'm sure, as a lot of you know, with children who have an ASD diagnosis, there's also that area of special interests that can occur. So by tapping into your child's special interests, like I said, you're using their strengths to help promote communication. And now I also wanted to go over some resources that you guys can use to find more information about milestones and about communication. So some of the ones that I used today for this presentation were Speech Sisters. They have great information on early language and early language milestones. Both SpeechDude and Jesse Ginsburg focus on neurodiversity and sensory strategies from a speech and language pathology perspective, and they've got great resources for parents and courses you can take as well. Meaningful Speech has information on Gestalt language processors, and again, she also offers courses that parents can take. And then ASHA is the American Speech Language Hearing Association, and they've got great educational resources on milestones, different therapy techniques, and information for parents. So that is the overall strategies that you can use at home. I hope that was informative. And now I believe we're going to go into our Q&A.
Thank you so much, Emma. I was taking notes and trying to catch up as you were speaking.
I can also send my notes to you too to distribute to the members if that would be helpful.
That would be very helpful. That would be very helpful, because I was just trying to connect with our initial conversations while we're talking about, we're talking to Chinanu, and she was saying that she knows her son has some words or udeme, but is unable to just use them effectively or use them to engage. And part of the parent strategy tips you said was that create opportunities throughout the day. We should keep talking to them, keep repeating and recasting what has been said. And also something I didn't learn on time was to give them a processing time. At times I speak first before he speaks, and I've shut him down. And so I've learned that when he comes home or when he gets home, I just keep quiet. I don't say anything until he greets me, then I respond. So those are very, very valuable tips and very useful tips. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. I'm just going to look into the comment section and see the comment section.
Someone is now intentionally commenting.
Yes.
That's good.
So says, okay, so the first question that I have here is, how do I make my son pay attention and share his words by directing those words to me or to objects?
Okay, so my first tip would be, again, remove all of those distractions and try, instead of making it whatever you want to talk about, something he's interested in. So let's say he's sitting on the floor playing with his cars and he's talking to himself. Try and join into his world and what he's doing. So oftentimes with children who have an ASD diagnosis, the motivators for communication start off really, really small, just with preferred interests. And we need to work to expand that to everything that we would talk about. But we can't put that expectation on children to start. So I would say try and join in whatever activity he's doing. And even if he doesn't say something that's directed towards you, but you're hearing language, again, repeat what he says and expand on it. So you're still communicating with him. It just might look a little differently than how someone who's neurotypical might communicate at first. But the more you reinforce any verbal language you're hearing, especially let's say it has to do with a motivating item. He likes a car, so you're going into the store to buy a new car toy. He just gestures. You can then say, oh, you want that car? Let's grab the blue car, want car, and use some of those comments that way. So it's going to take time. And I always tell families, give the strategies several weeks at a minimum to start to work. But yeah, in summary, get into his world, use motivating items for him, and any verbal language you're hearing, try to positively reinforce.
That's a very valuable one. Thank you so much for answering and sharing that. It just made me remember a book that I'm reading, How to Talk to Anybody. And the book will advise you to do things the person is interested, not what you want to say. So when you want your child to talk, connect with them on what is their own interest, not what you want to say, and give it time. That's very valuable. Thank you so much. And the next question says, how do I help him answer his name? Are there strategies around that?
So a great thing to do with getting kids aware of their name is starting even just with some pictures of them. So you could have some family pictures around the house and go through and label everyone, including your child, in those pictures. Then what you can also do too, if you're using any visuals like a visual schedule, an AAC device, have a picture of your child with their name there. So if you're calling out your child's name, also then point to the visual of a picture of them. So that's going to help them connect, oh, when I hear my name, it means me. I would also go over to your child. So if you are, let's say, in the kitchen and your child is in the dining room and you just keep yelling their name, well, odds are they're probably going to tune you out like anyone would if you just heard the same word being repeated over and over again, right? So I would say go to your child, get in front of them, try saying their name once, and then get into whatever it is you wanted to say to them. So again, it's going to take time, but the more that we help make that connection between their name and that's who they are, it's going to help them start to respond to their name when you're not directly in front of them.
That's a very good one. Thank you. This is my first time hearing that. I knew it took David quite a number of time, a while before he started being aware of his name, but I didn't know about that trick to put family pictures and just label and let him see this is Damie, Damie. Thank you so much. Someone just dropped a comment. I was saying when it comes to giving them opportunities to talk, he said when you, for example, if you give a child food without cutlery, he starts digging with his hands.
So I would say that's one scenario you can use for communication, but you could even try and give a food where you really need cutlery, like soup. So if it's let's say chicken, that's easy to pick up with your hands and start eating, whereas something like soup is going to be a little trickier, but you can create communication opportunities throughout the day that work best for your child. So another scenario you could do this in, let's say your child loves playing with Play-Doh, you could give them the tools for the Play-Doh, but not the actual Play-Doh. So I would brainstorm ideas throughout the day, write them down in your phone, any scenarios that come up when your child is playing or where you could see creating that communication opportunity, and then try and implement that by just removing one or two key pieces of whatever that activity is.
Oh, that's the reverse, right? I got that. Oh, okay. That's a very good tip. Thank you so much for sharing, Emma. Are there more? Oh, Becky is saying thank you for that tip.
You're welcome, Becky.
Are there more questions? Do you have questions for Emma? More questions? Earlier, while you were talking about how we should also honor every form of communication. Oftentimes, we as parents, we want to hear the verbal aspects of the communication, but there are some times where they're nudging us, and that could have promoted an opportunity for us to comment. I think that's a very good one that we tend to miss out a lot. We just wait for the verbal communication.
Yes, and any vocalization or gesture, or even if your child positions their body towards something, that all is valid communication attempts. So just make sure you're kind of keeping an eye out too for some of the things your child's doing to non-verbally communicate with you, and interpret and, like we said, honor all of those attempts, because it'll reinforce a positive response when they do that and encourage them to keep trying to communicate with you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, there's someone that says, any suggestions for sensory seeking? I know this is a little off topic, but like when we tried reading books to him, he puts it in his mouth. How do we redirect?
That's a great question. So, on Jesse Ginsburg's website, there's a checklist you can go through to find out what type of sensory needs your child has. So, we've got vestibular, tactile, visual. There's a couple of different ones, but I'd really recommend checking out her website to try and narrow down what sensory sensations your child is seeking. Now, specifically for trying to eat things, they have these really good chew necklaces, and they're designed so the pieces won't break off when you're chewing on them, and for different levels of pressure. So that can be really helpful to have, and oftentimes they're on a necklace so your child can have them accessible throughout the day, and when they feel that need to bite down on something, they can just pick up the necklace, bite on it, and go ahead and engage in whatever other activity they're doing. So I would try seeking out some of those sensory chew necklaces, or another great option is to look into occupational therapy, especially if sensory seeking behavior could harm the child. We want to try and troubleshoot some other ideas to redirect them, but occupational therapy is a really good resource for sensory needs as well.
Okay. So the thing is to direct and also seek the services of the occupational therapist to be able to suit that the sensory seeking feeling or what they want.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I have a question. It's not in the chat, but how can a parent that have about a child of 10 years old that is currently still pre-verbal, how can we support that child?
Absolutely. So we're going to use the same choices and commenting strategies. And if we're at age 10 and still pre-verbal, if AAC isn't in place, it most definitely needs to be. So whether that's talking with the school or your ABA therapist or your speech therapist, really try and advocate for that for your child. Now, when you are exploring AAC, you also want to try multiple options. I think I mentioned this in the breakout room to some of the people who are in there with me. It's not a one size fits all. So don't be afraid to try something. And if you see it's not working, tell your support network that and see if they can come up with another system that might be useful. I'd also, around the house, while you're trying to figure out an AAC system, is use as many visuals as possible. So this could be visual schedules for every routine, like brushing teeth, showering, dinner time, a school morning routine. It'll help your child know what to expect. And again, with the visuals, they can point if they are, let's say, not wanting to brush their teeth right now and they need some more time. Something else that can be helpful is, is engaging, like I said, in your child's preferred interests and trying to use some visuals, AAC, those commenting strategies with that. So again, because they're older, we want it to be age appropriate as much as possible too. I always tell parents nonverbal doesn't mean non-thinking. So you want to presume their competence is that of a 10-year-old, because if they don't have a way to express themselves, we can't assume their understanding is really low. So try and monitor their understanding as you introduce a robust communication system, and then you can see what level they're at. Are they at a 10-year-old's level or are they a bit lower? But until your child's able to show you that, don't assume because they aren't talking, they don't understand everything you're saying, because odds are they do.
Very important. So we shouldn't assume not competent because they're not talking. And for anyone whose child is yet to be verbal, then we should put in PECs or AAC in place and advocate that for everywhere in school, at home, and also
Absolutely.
try to find out your child's capability. Where are they? Their no knowledge or know-how, and meet them at that place.
Absolutely. And try and build on their strengths. So instead of looking at, oh, my child can't do A, B, C, well, what can they do? And how can we build on that? So instead of a deficits model, try and use a strengths-based model. That's going to be really positive for both you and your child if we approach therapy building off of what they're already capable of doing.
I just wrote that down, strength-based model. I didn't hear that. That's my first time. I'm like, okay, I need to read more and see how I can also
Yeah,
use that. Okay, okay.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. I have just going back to the chat and reading the question. Somebody said, same. My son can get very engrossed and it is hard to get him to transition to a new activity. At school, they have transition time, a transition toy, and trying to get his attention, but the same approach at home doesn't work. What are we missing?
So sometimes at home, it can just be because there's more distractions around. So they have the TV there, they've got their room to go to, they have all their preferred toys and activities and snacks. Where at school, they don't have access to all of those things. So, what I would try to do when you get home, only have one or two options. Whatever your child chooses, before they start engaging with it, discuss first we play with this, next we do this. So before they even start engaging in an activity, they know the expectation is it's going to end and something else is going to happen. While they're playing with that activity, give them reminders. So use language they are going to understand. Younger children don't know what 5 minutes left means. So let's say they're building blocks. You get 4 more blocks, now 3 more blocks. And that's going to help them realize the time with this activity is coming to an end in a way they can understand. Another, for older kids, something I've seen is if you have a clock, you can color code the clock into different time sections and have a key beside it. So when the clock is in the pink section, that means we're doing our homework. When it moves into green, that's when we get ready for bed. And it gives your child a really good visual reminder of what happened, what's coming next, and when we're in each stage. So hopefully one of those options can help in that scenario.
Thank you so much. That's really very, very insightful. Like you said, some things that we don't think about. It could be that there are too many distractions at home and the child can just dash to something else. And as to school, whereby it's very formal, structured,
Exactly.
and the child will follow through instruction in school. That's very, very insightful. Thank you. And also learned something. You said for some kids now, when you're trying to transition them, we shouldn't use time concepts. And that made me realize Demi has been learning time concept for about 2 sections now. And I would say 5 minutes. And there was a time I was telling him 1 second, and it was like, when you say, Demi, come downstairs, say, give me 1 second. And he goes and spend 5 minutes. I'm like, dude, 1 second is a snap. But
Yeah.
you mentioned that you made mention that we should use 4 more blocks, something they're doing and count down on that particular actual, not just give it time. That's very insightful. Thanks for sharing.
You're
Um,
welcome.
somebody, time is running up, I know, mindful. But
That's
somebody,
okay.
how do I manage a child that cries when you're trying to, when you are teaching the child or trying to get the child to look at you or what you're pointing at?
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of homework for you to do. When that happens, you should look at what else is going on in that environment. So, are they having to sit at a table when, from a sensory perspective, it would be better if they were standing or sitting on an exercise ball? Are the lights too bright and that's really upsetting to them? Is there a lot of background noise going on and they just can't really tune into what you're saying? So oftentimes that cry is not a nonverbal way of telling you something is wrong. So when you sit down, kind of take stock of everything that's happening, even write it down for a couple of days, and then look at what you've written down to see if there's a pattern there. So when we get to the table, that's when the crying starts. Then maybe the table's the problem and we need to try teaching them in a different environment. So again, I would look into the Jesse Ginsburg sensory strategies, because odds are there's something happening during that teaching time that from a sensory perspective is not fitting well with them. I would also say with joint attention and ASD, it doesn't look like our joint attention. So for example, we might look at something, point to an object, and then look back at our communication partner. But a child with ASD might not display the same joint attention. They might point but aren't making that direct eye contact, but it doesn't mean they aren't sharing it with you. So again, when you're pointing at something and your child might not look directly at it, it doesn't mean they don't see and hear you. They just might not feel like turning and looking at that object in that moment. So again, try and troubleshoot. Is it you're trying to force eye contact and that's making them uncomfortable? Is it that they have another toy in front of them that they would rather be looking at? So take notes of what's happening during that activity, and hopefully that can pinpoint why they're crying and what's upsetting them.
Thank you. That's very also insightful, because I remember there was a time where for Damie, we won't sit on the table, but we'll rather stand, and he will learn while standing. I don't know what was uncomfortable on the table, but I think it was after a while we got him a cushion. I saw that at your center.
Yes.
A sensory seat whereby he sits on and he can wiggle himself around, and right now he's more tolerant to sit on the table and walk. So yes, to who asked that question, trying to find out what around you is making him distracted, as it were, or uncomfortable. Emma, the last question, it says, my son expresses frustration and cries, throws himself on the floor when he's told to do a chore he has done before, or it's something in his routine or does with his dad with tantrum. It almost feels like his brain isn't understanding the instruction given occasionally. So it almost feels like one step forward, three steps back. Also, almost feels like he doesn't associate me with enforcing routine, which he loves, and associates his dad with routine. How does she manage the tantrum? She's a parent, the child is in 2 homes, and in one home he does better than in the other home. What advice can you give to that parent?
The first thing I would try and look at is, are you using the same routines and the same language for those routines in both homes? So it could be something as small as the way you're giving that verbal instruction is different, and your child is understanding the way his dad might be presenting the verbal instruction versus the way you are. So I would try and brainstorm a list of phrases you can both use around routines to make sure that's consistent. I would also try introducing visuals, like a visual schedule and the steps needed for each chore, but make sure you're using that at both homes. So that way, when he's with his dad, there's a positive association with introducing the visuals. Oh, you do have the visual schedule at both homes. Perfect. Okay. Then what I would also try and do is, if it's a task he really doesn't like, again, is maybe there a sensory component behind it. Like if you ask him to wash the dishes, but he really hates how his hands feel when they're wet. It could also help to add a motivating activity afterwards. So first we do this chore, then we get to go outside and swing. So if they know there's something that they really enjoy doing coming after the less desirable task, that can also help reduce some of that frustration. If he's also crying and throwing himself on the floor, I would also give him some space. So if we're upset, I always tell parents, we're not going to hear what anyone's saying to us. So try and just be there to comfort him. When he calms down and stops crying or having that tantrum, then try again explaining it with the visuals. don't try and really reinforce you need to do this task in the midst of a tantrum, because that's just going to cause the frustration levels to increase for both of you. I would also try and give him some tools he can use to feel empowered during those chores. So let's say you want him to sweep the floor. Can he go to the store and pick out a broom that he really likes and wants to use? So all of this is going to give your child some of that autonomy and hopefully have them a little more engaged in tasks they might not want to participate in.
Those are really interesting. I'm sure she must have learned a lot. Because I'm like, oh, so I need to go and get a special broom now or something. Like, I need to get a special broom now. Well, we will cross the bridge gradually. Thank you so much, Emma, for your time. Thank you for speaking with us today. Thank you for educating and sharing from your wealth of knowledge. We really do appreciate you. We appreciate your time. And thank you for all that you do in all the places where you volunteer. Thank you so much. So guys, you can feel free, unmute yourself, tell Emma we're thankful, or drop it in the chat. She will be dropping off very soon because I know she's quite busy. I was surprised that you were able to graciously honor us today, but I'm really, really thankful for the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and give you guys some hopefully helpful tips and information. And like I said, I'll send my notes over so you guys can refer back to them if you think of anything that came up in today's presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. They're saying thank you in the chat.
You're very welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank yous in the chat. Thank you so much, Emma. We really do.
You're all very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
day. Okay, guys. Thank you, Emma. Are there more thank you? Yes, more thank yous. Thank you so much, Emma. That was very insightful. I myself I learned quite a number of things that I didn't know. And definitely we'll be adding some strategies in place to help Dami communicate better and to understand us better. And so, yeah, that's about the educational side of our program today. I'm trying to quickly flip out the agenda. So the next thing I noticed that, and I'm going to share my screen so we can all see the winner. There's no hidden. We had two people who said, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see? Yes, I think you can see. We had two people who said that they were sure they sat with their child 100% of the month of October, even though we don't have them here, but we have to pick a winner. So it's between Tochi and Lola, and this is our challenge. I said that I was going to give an $100 gift card for anybody who was able to sit with their child throughout the month of October. And since we have two people, we're just going to spin a wheel, and the wheel is going to pick a winner, and then we will announce the winner in the breakout room. We'll announce the winner. I know they're not here right now, but nevertheless, we'll announce who won this challenge. So let's get this challenge started. Let's see who the winner is going to be between Lola and Tochi. Is it going to be Tochi or Lola? Okay. So, the message is that we continue holding ourselves accountable. Please engage with your accountability partner. I know I've been able to support my peers, the few ladies in my group, and I know they've also been able to support me. They've shared information with me that I have used. We formed a community within our community, and we celebrate our wins. So sometimes from time to time, we meet on Zoom on the weekend, on Saturday, whereby we just gist and go through what happened through our week. Apart from that, we also update ourselves in our group, WhatsApp group. We'll share pictures of videos of what is going on. We celebrate our wins. And yes, I would implore you, if you're in an accountability partner group, please engage. the whole idea is that you don't feel alone on this journey. When you know there are people cheering you, that your child was able to use the washroom, you feel happy, and also you are enlightened. You feel good. I think somebody understands. I know we all have BFFs in our lives, but our BFF might not be walking this journey with us and might not really understand. So that's about it for accountability partner. And the next is TWC. The next TWC hangout will be in January. And what we'll be talking about will be supporting siblings with autism, supporting siblings with with autism. I don't know about you, but I cannot overemphasize the impact autism has on every member in the family, more so the other children in the house. If your child is not a single child, I'm sure your child's siblings will have been going through some experiences of difficulties, their own challenges, and feeling left out. And so this opportunity, the next TWC, will be an opportunity for us to connect, opportunity for us to discuss how we can support them as well. Because directly or indirectly, your child carries this trait. For me and for my child, she's just very, very tight up. She's always in active mode. There is no downtime with her because she's always having to secure her brother when he had all these episodes of flight risks and all that. So it's still a challenge for us to get her loosen up. And that's because she had a brother that she always have to protect. Pardon me, Dayo. Thanks for bringing that. I thought somebody helped put that in the chat. Let me just quickly get that for that. Yes, the next TWC is January 14th. Please mark it in your calendar. Plan to attend. I'm trusting God that God will send somebody to talk to us. I don't know who the person is going to be yet, but I'm praying about that. And I know God will definitely send us a resource or somebody that can enlighten us, somebody that is way advanced and can tell us how to navigate, because I am still trying to wrap my head around how to support my child, my children. I don't have it all, but I trust God. Somehow God will send his word to us. So that's update. And now we have the floor open for the next 10 minutes. If you have anything you want to talk about, please feel free to unmute yourself. If you have a question, come on, unmute yourself. Each of you just want to chat, you want to rant, we are here. Unmute yourself and we can take the gist before we wrap at the 4:30, we will wrap up. So in less than 12 minutes, we would end the meeting. So if there's anything you want to say, anything you want to share, please feel free to unmute yourself. You have the floor now. Don't be a stranger. You're not strangers. You're not shy. So feel free to unmute yourself. Thank you, Becky.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So when you mentioned flight risk, when you mentioned flight risk, you just kind of pinched me where it's actually where the shoe pinches me, because everywhere in my house has child lock, and we can't even make mistake to forget to to lock it, because he would just open the door and run off to the road without even caring whether there's a car coming or anything. And that has been my biggest challenge. And I keep complaining both at home and then in his daycare. We've had incidents like that happen when he ran out to the intersection. Like, I was just thanking God that the cars actually stopped. Like, I just couldn't help but imagine if the person was a distracted driver or anything, anything could have really gone really bad, right? Yeah. So that is one of my biggest challenge, controlling that flight risk. So if you want to share anything.
That is a big one. And like I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm just going to share from my experience how we navigated that. Having a child that is at flight risk is extremely risky. It's scary for you, the parents. And like you said, if there's not a careless driver, they could just run to the road, as it were. But for me and Damien, I remember then when we came to Canada, because he was in the kindergarten, he would always leave the kindergarten pen at recess and go elsewhere, and they'll be looking for him. And so what I did then, as not silly as it were, but what I did then was to take him out more. So it was a reverse psychology. And so my idea was that if he doesn't know something, there's no how you can teach him. And so then I remember I would take him grocery shopping, but I will hold him firmly and I'll keep reiterating that, Demi, this is where we are going to, this is where you walk. So much so that I remember then I had some videos on Instagram there whereby we would walk on the highway, on the street, and I'll just leave him. I'm gradually exposing him to know when to walk and when to stop, listen and follow my instructions. I know for everybody it might not be that easy, but I think that was what I did then. I kept taking him outside, even when it was not convenient. I kept exposing him to different areas. Then we'll go to the mall and I'll hold him and say, stay here. Oh yeah, like stay here. And yeah, at times he will be overwhelmed. And when we are going to all those places, busy places, I make sure he has headphones on so that he can regulate himself. But if we don't expose them to these places where they would normally run, how exactly do they learn? So these things are skills that don't come natural to our children. And with every skill, we have to teach. So with teaching will come a pain. But for me, that has happened that right now, Demi can ride a bicycle while I'm jogging behind him. He knows that when he gets to the stoplight, he waits there. The last time I did it, I was almost running out of my, because I thought it would have forgotten. But immediately he got to that light, he stopped before we pressed the pusher that we had to cross. So I'm just iterating. It might feel afraid, but I would say do it afraid. Just do it afraid. We need to keep exposing them and keep teaching them these skills. As difficult as it is, we are the one that we're going to teach them the skills. So try that. And once they get it right, remember, please reinforce them, give them something nice, give them something they love, just to reinforce that I am happy that you did this, you followed my instructions. And gradually over time, they can learn and know that when you're here, stay here. If you comply, I'll give you something like a reward. But that's what, from my experience, that's what I did, and that's what worked for me. I'm open. Does anybody have any strategy around that she can adopt apart from what I shared? Please feel free to unmute. We can all talk now. We can all learn. My experience is just one out of 18 of us here. So feel free, if there's something that has worked for you, that you've been able to teach your child how to stay between boundaries, please let us know.
I think the tips you gave were actually really excellent, because the reason why they elope is because they are looking for adventure. They want to see what's outside. So when you take them outside, then it takes away that urge to want to just wander, even though, of course, it's not every time it's possible to take them out, you know. So what you can then do is look for indoor activity like the trampoline to get them jumping, anything that will get them moving, physical activity within the home for days when you can't take them out. I feel like that really helps. You know, of course, the normal security measures, which I think she already mentioned, you put all the locks on your door possible, and you just need to continue. Yes, and you just need to continue reiterating it to the daycare people or anybody who is involved in the care of your child, that okay, he's a flight risk. This is what happens. This is bad. My son still does it. He still does it. You know, but it's not as bad now, because when it gets cold, he doesn't like the cold, so he's not encouraged to go outside. So when there's snow on the ground, I think
your son eloped once that you mentioned to me.
Yeah, he has eloped more than once now. He's tried all kinds of things. In fact, he has discovered how to jump the fence into the neighbor's yard. Yeah. So what I discovered was that there was an AC compressor which he was using to step, because I was looking, how can he go over the fence? And I saw, oh, there's something he can climb. So they are intelligent. They are also looking for all sorts of ways to step out and all that. So, you know, it's just a case of constantly watching. It's exhausting, and then, you know, looking for ways to just keep them safe. It's a phase which I believe will pass, because it's not as bad as it used to be, you know. But it's still there, and it's something that we're also still working on. So those are the things that I feel like they work. Sometimes I just put him in a buggy and just take him around the block, you know, take him for a walk, take him to the park. Let him get out all his whatever it is that is making them, you know, restless. Let them go on the seesaw, let them swing, let them do whatever, and then just bring them home. By that time, they're able to relax a bit more. Yeah. I think those are things that I found that helped.
Thank you so much, Becky, for sharing. Anybody has another suggestion? It just made me remember while Becky was saying that, while Becky was speaking, is that we should try and have a sensory schedule for your child every day. Now, if your child knows that after this, I'm going to do some things, they are able to predict, they know their expectations. Like, I'm going to jump on the trampoline, I'm going to go to the park, I'm going to do this. Like all their sensory seeking activities, as it were. If you schedule it in their day, I think that would reduce them going out of their way to look for this sensory feeling, as it were. That can also reduce eloping, because if they've already exhausted, they've gone to the playground, they've done this one, but at times there might be one-offs. But I'm just feeling that if we also give them those opportunities to express themselves, they won't be seeking out all these things, as it were. But that's about that. Anybody else have a question? We have 5 more minutes left before we wrap it up for the day. Any person question on your mind, something you need people to chime in on? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Yes. Okay.
Yes. I just want to say, not like I have any solution to what the issue you just mentioned, but I want to say that for my son, when you're working with him and you just leave his hand, the next thing he will take off. So that scares me a lot. But what I did lately, that was 2 days ago, we were just walking home at night. I was scared because he did something. He was almost running into the road for the first time. So, but after that, I said, okay, let me even try for once. Let's allow him to walk on his own. Though I was scared. And he did for a bit. And then the next thing, he started running. I went after him. So what I'm actually taking out of this meeting today is that it is just our responsibility to help them. Even if you have to do it with fear, even if you are afraid of doing it, but we just have to do it. I think that's what I am going home with today. We just have to do it.
We have to do it afraid,
yes.
Chinanu. We just have to do it afraid. I think that was the only way. Like the day I was riding on the bike, Demi was riding on the bicycle and I was jogging behind him. It was just the two of us. Ideally, it would be him and his sister, and she would guide in front. But I just left him and the guy was riding bicycle. I was like, yeah, Mugbe. And he was going. But it got to the light and he stopped. I was shouting, Demi, stop, Demi, stop. But he got to the light and he just stopped. I was like, oh, so you know what to do. And so I let him and we tried practice that. So the one still says practice make perfect. We'll have to do it afraid, but yeah, cautiously, but we still have to do it. We still have to do it. Okay, guys, any more question? Any person area that you think you just want people to talk about? I've dropped the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the group, please feel free to join.
Okay, one more question, please. I just want to know if there's anything like pairing of people in the group so we can help one another. I think you mentioned something, but it wasn't clear to me, or I was not settled to hear the full information. So I just want to know if we can have 1 or 2 persons that are attached to us, that when we have questions or have concern, we can just reach out to the person and the person can also reach out to us.
How the group work is that ideally, if you have any question, if you want to rant, if you are worried, you are scared, or you just need somebody to talk to, drop a message in the group. Now, the accountability partner was for us that if we have a particular goal that we want to work on, that was in October, that your accountability partner, we're going to hold you responsible to help you make sure that you achieve them. Well, then it was like sitting down with your child every day.
Okay.
But we still have those groups. And also to build, like, the group is very large and some people don't get to talk. But if you're in a group of 3, I'm hoping that would help you to come out of your shell and just share with your accountability partner. So I have a group of 2 other ladies apart from myself. And like I said, we meet once in a while, we schedule a video call whereby we just gist about life. Yeah, we have friends, but we also need friends that understand that my son ran away. Or my son pooed by himself for 5 minutes today. Or my son had constipation. What can I do for constipation? What exactly can... All those questions you can ask, and you can also ask in the main group. But you know, when you just have like two people that really get you, you really feel welcome. You feel like, okay, there's somebody I can ask, even if there's no response in the main group, they would also just share. So that's why the accountability partner was set up. But it was open to those who want to participate. I think you just joined, and I might just open it again in the WhatsApp group for people who want to participate in who don't have a partner. And if we have up to 3 people, then I'll ask one of the admins to pair you up together, and you can take it up from there. So during the course of the week, I would tell one of the admins to send a reminder out, or just tell people if you want somebody to be your accountability partner, indicate, and we'll do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chinano. Okay, guys, it's 4:30. We spent 2 hours, 30 minutes. I hope it's been very informative for you, very engaging. You got to connect with somebody. I don't want us to be stretching to 3 hours. It's quite long, considering those in Lagos or those in UK that have to go to bed early. It's just 4:30 by my time, but I also acknowledge that it might be 10:30 in other people's time, and it's time to spend time with their family. So I won't want to keep you waiting for so long. So thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed spending the last 2.5 hours with you. I do hope you have an amazing day and a great rest of the week.